So let's get started with our first speaker. That is Markus Groll, Managing Director and COO at Ionity. Markus, you started out a long time ago installing AC chargers in Germany, and now you are in charge of one of the biggest fast charging networks in Europe, spanning 24 countries. Easy transition, right?
Yeah, thanks, Carla. That's true. It's quite a journey. Since 2009, I'm active in the e-mobility field and started with 22 kilowatt AC chargers. Then in between, there were the DC 50 kilowatt chargers, and now we talk about high power chargers with 350 kilowatts and more. So that shows the impressive development over the last few years in that field.
Well, let's see how Ionity is doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Carla, for the introduction, and happy to be here. Hope a lot of people are joining the conference today, and I will give you a short overview on Ionity, where we stand, what we are doing, and especially, let's say, a deeper look into the country specifics we are seeing across Europe, and also how we are managing the complexity in that network we are operating right now. So just short overview, what does Ionity stand for? On the one hand side, of course, fast charging, high power charging. As you know, we're offering 350 kilowatts on our charging points with 920 volts voltage and up to 500 amps. This will further continue to grow, as probably everybody knows. We are now talking about 500 to 600 kilowatts, even for passenger cars in the next years. So fast charging, very short stops for charging are becoming more and more important. And that's what we are driving and pushing for since the beginning of Ionity. And another aspect we also have deployed already 4 years ago is plug and charge, which enables you to just connect your car with a charger, and then the authorization and the payment is run automatically, and you do not need to do anything else. So we also think this is a very good feature to further increase the speed during your charging session. Second point, of course, reliability and availability across Europe. With our network, you can drive from the south of Spain to the north of Norway. I think the map is even not showing all sites we are having, even in the north of Norway and Finland. So that's a pan-European approach here, which allows you to do long-distance traveling easily with your electric vehicle wherever you want to go. And the third aspect, of course, also highly important. EVs are, of course, making most sense and let's say sustainable when the electricity in the chargers is coming from renewable energy. So all the electricity we are using on our charge point is coming from renewable suppliers, from photovoltaic, wind, and hydropower. So next, where do we stand right now? You can see that on our website, always online and always up to date. So we are active in 24 countries across Europe, 616 charging stations operational today. That changes quite often now. So next few days, a few new sites will go live, and 3,638 charging points operational, meaning high power charging points with 350 kilowatts or 200 kilowatts. And here just a few pictures showing that we are really there in these 24 countries, and also listed here which countries are these. Just a note here, there are also some Eastern European countries, of course, like Bulgaria, Romania, Greece, which we are not covering at the moment. These are countries for further expansion going forward, depending on the market development we are seeing these countries. So that might be also further room for expansion for us into Eastern Europe. Where do we have our sites? As you know, I mean, the main focus on Ionity or for Ionity for the network is on the highway, long distance sites. One example here on the left-hand side in France, where we have some bigger sites now also with canopies, with roofs, which allow, let's say, the long distance trip when you go really through France to Germany up to Norway. You can stop there and do a quick break in between. But we are also now expanding a few sites into more metropolitan areas, because we are seeing more and more demand of people not only doing long distance trips, but also in metropolitan areas, people who cannot charge at home or at work, but also more and more fleet vehicles from taxis and parcel services who need charging in between their routes. And therefore, we are also now developing sites more in metropolitan areas, like this example here in Oslo, which is really more or less downtown Oslo, but ideally located next to the highway. So perfect combination of an urban charging site and long distance. And our strategy is to always make sure that we have good amenities next door. Amenities means restrooms, for example, coffee shop, restaurants, so that people can use the time during the charging session in a reasonable manner. Yeah, and looking back into the history, Ionity has been founded in 2017, and already a few months later, in 2018, we went live with the first site in Germany, famous Bohltal Ost, close to the Nürburgring. That was the first site we opened in April 2018, and since then the network has grown significantly. We are above 600 sites, as presented already, more than 3,300 charging points, and you can also see here how we, let's say, expanded the network into the countries. So first starting with the big markets, Germany, France, and then going into also smaller countries over the following years. So in 2021, we then reached 24 country coverage, with the Baltic countries being last in this growth phase. You can also see that the growth was a bit slow in 2020 and until 2022. 23, then we saw already quite a good improvement and acceleration, and we are planning to continue this growth rate over the next years. To follow the market demand and also, have enough charging capacity available. And this is of course driven by the market development for the BEVs. This is here one projection we are using for our internal planning. So there's an estimation of 60 million EVs and plug-in hybrid cars on the roads by 2030. So a big share of the total fleet will be then electrified. Of course, also the plug-in hybrids included here. So we talk about, I think, around 45 million BEVs here in our planning, coming from a size of around 4 million at the moment. So we expect a growth rate of around 30% per year. And from our understanding, what we are seeing now, let's say a bit of the discussions in some countries, a bit of slowdown on the sales. This is just an interim effect. We are, of course, highly convinced that this growth will happen because from our understanding, there are no other options than electric vehicles and bringing also to bring, let's say, renewable energy on the road and have sustainable transportation going forward. And with our network plan, we will follow this market growth. So the ambition, the plan until 2027 at least, is to grow the network to more than 1,000 sites and around 9,000 charging points. And we will do that by having new sites, but also adding capacity to existing sites where we see good utilization and where we can also extend the contract and extend the site with more charging points. Yeah, and a bit more insight into the different countries, because I think, compared to other CPOs, we have really this big coverage, so we can see the developments in the different markets. And we are also adapting our plans to that development. So here on the first page, you see actually our top 3 countries, more or less, Germany, France, UK, where most of the energy and revenue is generated for our charging network. In Germany, for example, we have 223 sites live right now, 23 are under construction, and we see a market share, or saw a market share last year of 18% new car sales EVs. And we have a huge fleet in Germany, of course, of around 48 million light duty vehicles on the road. And that is the reason why we are planning to grow Germany quite strongly. We see a lot of potential still in the market by the electrification. Same more or less in France, same situation. There we already have a bit bigger network. Actually, France is our biggest country right now in terms of existing sites, existing network on the highways. And also there we will grow, but a bit slower at the moment because the network is already quite well covering the country. And therefore, we will more or less selectively now develop the network, especially in the regions and the gaps on the map where we are missing sites at the moment. And on the other hand, the UK, we still have a quite small network there with only 27 sites live, 16 under construction. But the market shows a lot of potential, of course, also good market share right now. Therefore, we will grow this market really strongly to a number of sites, around 80 to 100 in the next 2 years, to cover that country also better. And on the other hand, I'm showing also a few examples now of, let's say, smaller countries. One, of course, is Norway, very famous. Everybody knows, of course, in Norway, high market share of EVs, 73% from our knowledge base was electric, pure electrics last year sold. But we have to consider that the total fleet of vehicles is relatively small because the country is not big with 5 million inhabitants. We talk about 3 million light-duty vehicles. So here we already have 39 sites, 2 sites under construction, and also here we will more follow a selective approach to fill gaps in the network, but not grow the market extremely strongly, because we are seeing that there is already a bit of saturation happening. A lot of CPOs are active in Norway, of course, so it does not make sense now to build, I don't know, 200, 300 sites for us in Norway with this kind of market potential we are seeing at the moment. And on the other hand, in Italy and Spain, these are, let's say, I would say late following countries. At the moment, the market shares are still quite small with 4 and 6%. Countries are big, of course. You have to cover quite some distances to have a decent network. That's the reason why we also here will further grow the network to fill the gaps, but also here not such a strong growth like, for example, in the UK. But of course, we have to keep in mind the future potential is huge, because the countries have a big fleet of vehicles of 40 million in Italy and 25 million in Spain. So in the long term, of course, these countries will have a lot of potential. In the next years, we will need to monitor the market development and then selectively invest and build the right sites for these countries as well. Yeah, so that was a short glimpse into our, let's say, network plan. The other angle is, of course, what kind of challenges does it contain if you want to operate in 24 countries? And sometimes I'm also discussing with my colleagues, was it really such a good idea to do 24 countries in parallel? Because it brings a lot of requirements and a lot of complexity into the operations and the build-up of the network. And it starts with the legal aspect. I mean, our colleagues from CMS will present it in a few minutes. We are also working closely with CMS as our legal advisors to manage all this legal complexity we are seeing. It starts with building permits, which are always different, following different regulation, tax regulations, different currencies, of course. Not everywhere we have the euro, as you know. The energy law is different. And last but not least, we also now have the AFIR, which is at least common for the EU countries, but we also have non-EU countries in our network. So yeah, the legal aspects are quite complicated sometimes and need a good local advice as well of people who know the country and the legal requirements in the country. And that's what we manage on a daily basis actually at the moment. The other aspect, quite straightforward, languages, of course. We have 19 languages on our HMIs, on our displays, on the chargers, which you can select in the display. And our hotline, our service hotline, is offering 8 languages right now, which is of course also a challenge to, let's say, have this capacity available, translate everything in all these languages to make sure that every customer can get the right support. The nice thing is if you drive as a, let's say, German, for example, through Europe, no matter where you are charging at Ionity, you can always get a German hotline assistance to help you if you have issues. Another aspect, also, of course, clear, but we have a high spread of temperature, which poses some additional requirements to our hardware, but also our grid connection and substations. So we talk about a range of minus 40 degrees up in the north of Norway or Finland in wintertime, and it stays on this level, not for maybe some days even. And on the other hand, also very hot temperatures in south of Europe, Spain, Italy, where it's going up to 50 degrees in some regions already in summertime. And that, of course, needs to be managed technically. So we need heating and cooling systems in the chargers, which make sure that the chargers are operating even under these extreme circumstances. Another point, which is also probably interesting, or a point which is really different in each country, is how the highway concessions and the highway rest area concessions are managed. That's really everywhere different. From, for example, in the Nordics, there are no highway concessions existing, for example. So there you only have, let's say, plain space next to the highways, at the exits of the highways, where you can then buy or rent land and operate charging stations. In other countries, and like in Germany, as you know, for the on-highway sites, the rest areas, you need concessions. Here in Germany, it's managed by Tank and Rast, as you know, and the non-commercial rest areas by the Autobahn GmbH. In France, these are private concessions of highway operators where you need to, let's say, have contracts with to build chargers. And in Italy, it's the same. There you also have private highway operators who are managing also the rest areas. And there are also often tenders, as we all know, in this respect. So these tenders are, of course, challenging sometimes to make sure that you can really get chargers on these rest areas. Then another aspect, which also time-wise, as I will show in a minute, poses some challenges, is the access to the electricity grid. Not only that it takes sometimes really long to get access, it's also that the technical requirements are often different. So each grid operator, or often each grid operator, has special requirements that, for example, is a challenge because you then need substations which are fulfilling these individual requirements per site. So you cannot just have substations on stock and bring them to a site. You always need to have built-to-order substations which exactly meet the requirements of a local grid operator. So that's definitely a point which is causing a lot of work for us and also a lot of time for the development of new sites. Last but not least, service maintenance. Having the chargers in the ground is nice, but the challenge then only starts because you need to keep them alive. You need to keep them up and running at a good level. And if you go up to the north of Sweden or Finland, you also have to make sure that you have service technicians in the area, which then can quickly go to the site and repair the charger in case it's broken. And also you need spare parts, which are quickly available. So you need a logistics system, making sure that the spare parts are then sent to the site quickly. So these are all things we are managing on a daily basis, and across the 24 countries, that's sometimes quite a challenge. Looking also at the lead times, just to give you a glimpse of what we are talking about. If we want to build a new site, we often get the question, why doesn't it go faster? Why do you need a year to get the site up and running? And there are many things to be considered, but the two main topics are the power supply topics, so grid connection and the substation. Here, as examples, we showed the range to get a grid connection after the application is sent to the grid operator. We have some good examples, I would say, in France and Austria, where we talk about roughly 12 months, sometimes even a bit faster, to get a grid connection from the local grid operator or even the central grid operator, like in France. But we also have some more difficult examples, like in Poland, Italy, and Spain, where it can easily be 24 months until the grid connection is established by the local DSO. And that, of course, for the lead time and planning of sites is quite a challenge, because you then need to adapt all your plans according to the grid connection lead time. It doesn't make sense to start construction directly, even if you could, and then wait 24 months for the grid connection. Substations also became a bit of a bottleneck in the last years. We also here talk about lead times between 6 and sometimes 16, 14 months in some countries. So especially Germany, UK are challenging here in that matter, because a lot of people, a lot of CPOs, but also renewable production facilities need substations to feed electricity into the grid. And the other aspect are the permits. We need, of course, permits to build and operate sites. Building permits can also last from 5 months to sometimes 18 months. In some countries, especially Germany and Spain, we sometimes really have a long process here to get the building permits from different authorities. It could be a local municipality, it could be highway operators, to really be then able to build the site in the planned way. And in some countries, you also need operational permits to go live with the site and really start operating with the chargers. Of course, what we are not doing is doing that sequentially, so one step after the other, because then the site would take, 5 to 6 years to be developed. Our approach here is to do everything in parallel and then just decide when do we really start with the actual construction, which only takes around 2-3 months mainly. But we always, per site, on an individual site level, we need to decide what is the longest lead time in the process, and how do we then plan to build and operate the site. Yeah, and a short look on our hardware, on our chargers we are deploying. This is also publicly communicated. As you probably know, we have 4 different hardware suppliers at the moment in our network, which I think is also different compared to many competitors. We are more focusing on 1 or maybe 2 suppliers. We have Tritium as being the first supplier actually we had in the field with around 40% in the network. Or 37% in the network. We have ABB with 58% right now. So a lot of our new sites are built with ABB chargers. And since last year, we are also adding on these sites IPtronic chargers for 200 kilowatt charge points next to the ABB or Ecoenergetica chargers. Yeah, and Ecoenergetica is also a new supplier we are working with intensively, especially in Eastern Europe right now, who is also supplying our 350 kilowatt chargers. And to manage this, all this we just discussed, from our perspective, our point of view, it's not so easy for a CPO to do everything only with external. So we have decided on a few fields where we need own expertise, where we need to do insourcing. And one field, of course, is the IT part, where we in the last years developed a new own software which is running our charging network. So the charge point management system has been developed by us and is running since last year very successfully. On the one hand side, of course, to become independent of software providers, software vendors. On the other hand side, also to be more flexible and to also fulfill the different requirements like roaming, taxation, currency, and also the AFIR requirements on the IT. The second part where we might be also a bit different is that operations, a lot of the operations processes and capacities in-house. We have our own field service technician team. They are running around in Europe with electric vehicles, which at the moment are ID buses and eVTOLs to monitor, repair, and maintain the chargers. And last but not least, we have a quite big test area here in Munich where we can test our existing chargers, but also new chargers and new EVs, which are coming to the market to make sure that everything works properly, to do real end-to-end testing between EVSE and EV, and further develop the hardware and the IT system as well. So that would be it from my side. Looking forward to your questions later on, and also looking forward to the other presentations. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Markus, thank you very much. Very interesting, especially the part on how long you have to wait to get a grid connection in some parts of Europe. And just a quick question, I know we're going to talk later again in the discussion, but just a quick question. You mentioned AFIR. Do you think that with it might speed up in those countries, since now European member states also have a goal to get charging stations up and running more quickly?
Honest answer, no, because the issue I just described, the grid connection topic, from my understanding, is not really covered there. There are additional requirements coming, like the credit card terminal, and to have let's say a balanced market setup between MSPs and CPOs. But for the issue of grid connection and permits, from my understanding, it will not really help us and will not speed up the deployment. Yeah, just my personal opinion.
All right, we're going to stick with AFIR. Markus, thank you very much. We'll see each other later in the discussion talk again.
Thank you.
See you in a bit.